Right, we are live. Hey everyone, welcome to the Podetize Weekly Client Coaching Call. I'm Tom Hazard, along with my co-host and better half Tracy, and we've got a very fun topic for you today.
Well, I
And
don't know about fun, but
I think it's
definitely
fun.
like conversational. And I mean, I don't think I can't, there's not been a week that goes by where I don't have someone like pinging me for information, asking me my thoughts on it, or have been on a webinar or giving a speech about it. So artificial intelligence, we're going to talk about that again today. We did an episode about that a month ago.
But
A
different aspect of it.
Right. Right. We were covering and talking about what it is, why you might want to be using it, what you might want to be thinking about. And there's been, I think, nonstop in the podcast industry, everyone claiming that they're using artificial intelligence. I do want you to understand that they're not necessarily what we're using AI in a responsible way. And I want you to consider this and understand this, because your use of it could put you at risk, number one. Number two, it also signs away your rights a lot of times when you use their terms and conditions, and you're contributing to and helping them grow their business without getting any compensation in the process for your data, your hard work, because it is your work on the other end. So this is what I think people don't understand. OpenAI, ChatGPT is, by them making this available to you for free, they're having the crowd, all of you, teach it how to function. And they're not compensating you for that. They're already making billions.
Don't we want to talk about this in the episode? We haven't.
Oh, I thought you started the episode.
Not officially. I was.
Okay, Tom, it sounded like you started the episode, so I just assumed you did.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, I can't do it again. You just ruined it. By doing that, you just ruined it, because I can't do it again.
You'll do it better.
No, I won't. I can't do it again. It's not my thing.
Live stuff, folks. This is live. Well,
right.
No, I didn't.
Reality is that the lesson here is you should have just gone with it. You should have just let it go, and you should have just gone with it, and we would have started the episode from wherever it was.
Probably should have.
Yep. And by interrupting it, and now we're starting it all over again.
I thought you were giving a little preview to just the people here live before we started recording it, and that.
Why would I do that? Because we're live everywhere.
Well, we always do a formal introduction to the podcast.
It sounded like you did that. You said, "I'm here with my better half and everything," and you introduced me. So I thought that was your podcast introduction, because that's what you normally do when we do the show.
Okay. That's, not the way I normally do it. So I just.
Well, everyone, you get a peek at how difficult it is to co-host.
Well, there are nuances to it. Usually we're a little better than this. Okay. So no, I expected to do a little more formal introduction. That's why I asked you for the title, because I was going to say the title up front, which I didn't do. So, all right. Hey there, welcome to Feed Your Brand. I'm Tom Hazard with my co-host Tracy, and today we're going to talk about working guidelines for using podcast AI responsibly. And I have to say, we're hearing about AI more and more than ever. We recorded a different episode about this a little while ago, but this is something different today. And I hear every day there's a new tool for AI, Tracy, and ones that are being
specifically ones marketed to podcasters.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so there's a couple of cautions that I want to talk about today about whether or not it's actually really AI. I think it's questionable on a lot of the tools that we're seeing. Whether or not you're going to get any good results is a question that you should have at all times. I don't know that it goes to responsibly, but it certainly goes into effectively. So if you want to talk about using podcast AI effectively, is a totally different conversation that we might want to have. But right now, today, we're going to talk about whether or not the choices that you're making and helping and using AI are actually not going to harm your brand, your business. Whether you're getting compensated for it is a question. And we're doing a lot of work. So let's set the tone here, Tom.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people don't realize when they're using AI, you're actually helping the AI or the company that owns that AI or has created, their interface to the AI. You're helping them. You are giving them a valuable data set that's helping train their AI?
So I got an invitation today to Google Bard. So Google Bard is the search engine's option for being able to utilize AI within your search engine. So I got an invitation for the beta. And I guarantee you I got an invitation for the beta because I'm a heavy Google user, right? Like, so, and they know that. And they probably know I have an Android phone. So they know that I'll switch back and forth between using it on my desktop and my phone. So they understand that. They profiled me and they selected my email as a part of one of those earlies for a reason, right? But they also know that my pattern of usage is going to benefit them in terms of the results that they're going to get from them. Do I get anything for it? No, I get to say really cool. I got to be in the beta group, right? And so people use beta group as bait, right? This is why ChatGPT just like went off. Everybody was like so excited to sign up. It felt exclusive. You could get in. But the reality is that when you got in, you signed to terms and conditions, which basically said you don't get compensated for anything that you do here. Your role in this, and you may not have understood that that's what you're doing, but ChatGPT was developed because they couldn't possibly anticipate how companies and individuals would want to use it. They needed to mass brute force test it, and they wanted all of us to do that. And they wanted to not pay anyone to do it.
And boy, did that work.
Boy, did that work. And not only did it work, but now people are paying them for the benefit of using it, right?
That's what I was going to say. As soon as we got the opportunity to sign up and pay them $20 a month to get better access to it, because a lot of times you wouldn't be able to sign in because there were too many people on it. It exceeded their capacity. But then there are other features of the paid version. It's like, I was like dying to pay them money to get a higher level of access and use.
Right. So this is what you're signing in. So this is why when I say I want you to understand the guidelines for responsible AI usage, you know your rights, you know what you're doing, you know what you're signing away. So if you're utilizing this, you are training an artificial intelligence to be better at what it does. And if you're not going to be I'm going to say a worthwhile contributor to that, in other words, if you decide that you're going to be one of those protagonists who decide to confuse the AI and decide to do that, great, play away at it and be one of those people. But you're not helping to move AI to a better place. Recognize that. You're not a positive influence in its results. Now, if there's something going on and you need to report it, to do it, to definitely do that, right? But know that you are helping to train this is a responsible usage, right? Understanding that that's what you're accomplishing by doing that. And there are so many people who just don't understand what they're signing into and doing. So this is what I also want to remind you. When you sign into for a beta usage of any one of these podcast tools that are giving you free usage for a time being, understand that they're never going to pay you. They're never going to compensate you for teaching their system and making their company valuable. Do you want to be a part of that? Is that something that you want to do in that case? I mean, Tom and I walked away from some tools a year ago or more because we thought they don't even understand how to train the AI. It's not going to get better over time. So we walked away from it because it didn't have a process for doing that. And all they wanted was to charge people for access to it. And so they didn't have a continual learning process. They didn't really have an artificial intelligence that learned from its mistakes. It didn't have a process built into it. So we chose to walk away from that because that's not actually responsible usage of AI because it's not going to grow and get better. So I'm going to continue to pay for something and access to a tool that isn't going to get any better over time.
Yeah, I think in that case, it was even more disappointing to us because this tool came with the promise that use it for a while and it is going to produce better and better results for you. And that really didn't happen with that AI tool.
No, in fact, because it didn't have a learning component built into it, what happened was it got muddier and muddier and muddier, if you want to think of it like that. It got more mediocre in its results. And to this day, I can go through podcast apps and I can tell exactly who uses that quote AI. because it's not truly AI if it's not machine learning on the other side. So these AI applications, they're pitching you, but most of them are half-baked. And they don't have enough users in them, and they don't have a learning system. So there are three things that I think are guidelines for responsible AI usage and creation. So in other words, if I'm a company and I'm going to offer you AI, these three things are the major components that we have. First off, that it has a big enough data set without requiring everyone to sign up and use it. So in other words, if you think about ChatGPT, it already had a ton of pre-trained data. It already had a language built into it. It already had that in place before it got started. It didn't rely on you having to bring that to it. So if you're bringing your data set into something, then it's not that they should be paying you. Right? Like that's all I have to say is they should be paying you if you have to bring your data set to it.
The other thing that I want to just point out about ChatGPT is they were very transparent about their data set had limitations. If you were going to be asking it questions about current events in the last several months, it was not going to be able to give you accurate results on that. They had it only through a certain date, and what was it, 2019 or 2020, something around there. Their data set only went forward so far that you're, to be considered in what you were asking it. So I do think they were upfront about that.
Well, and this is the second part of this. Is your data set transparent, right? So part of the problem with some of these AI image development companies that have been out for a little while, think about Midjourney or something like that you might have heard of. Some of these companies are in trouble right now and being sued for using a data set they didn't have a right to access. According to the lawsuit, of course. I mean, that's still alleged, so we'll see how it turns out. But almost everyone would agree that this is the issue. It decided to use a data set of learning on stock image libraries, of which it didn't pay to access it. It scraped it. And so it's obvious in the results because it has a watermark from those sites in the resulting images that it creates utilizing its AI. So the data set itself could be compromised, could be something that is not valuable, or could be actually harmful. And here's where, like in podcasting, if they trained their voice to text algorithm, so lots of these companies are offering up transcription service, automated transcription service, which have existed for a long time. The OpenAI version is called Whisper. There's Rev, which has an AI version. There's what's that other one called that we were looking into that we tested last year? I forgot the other one. Deep Deepgram.
Oh, Deepgram. Oh, yeah.
Deepgram's another one, and they all utilize the speech to text kind of model. But they utilize in its training set, some of them utilized, and Whisper's one specifically because Microsoft was a part of the process, uses the transcription system within Microsoft Word, which was this auto dictation system. And if we think about auto dictation, who does dictation? A lot of white male lawyers, right? And so it's already skewed in its usage. A lot of them were trained on radio and TV, journalism, broadcast journalism, predominantly white male again. So we have skewed data set. So if I'm going into that as a female, I'm going to say, now that I see what this data set is it really even going to serve me well? I'm contributing, yes, and doing that and contributing to bringing in a diversity of voices, which it desperately needs to improve. But I'm not getting compensated for it. I have to pay that company for it. I don't know that I want to be involved in that. So these are the things that we need with the transparency, understanding of what the data set is and how it's being utilized and how I'm contributing to it is that second thing that I say you need. So not only do you need to know it has a data set, but what is that data set and how is it being utilized for my benefit, right? And then the third part of that is then that resulting learning, does it exist? And if I'm contributing to this resulting learning, are you compensating me for it? Is my ownership rights of my own content still mine? Does the images that get generated, do they belong to the company or do they belong to me? Does the copy that gets generated belong to me? I may or may not be able to copyright it by copyright rules in terms of the government, in terms of, patent and trademark office. I may not have full rights in all of that. However, it doesn't mean it's not my content, right? At the end of the day, the resulting. So we do need to analyze these three things when we're looking at utilizing a tool, and not just dive in and say, hey, I'm ready to use this. Experimentation is one thing, and I'm all for it. But if you're going to put it into your workflow and your work process or integrate it into your company, be seriously considering it. And so far, Tom and I have rejected every single podcast AI out there up to date. I have investigated over 20 right now. In the last 3 months alone, I've investigated 18 of them. 2 of them I was evaluating the prior year. So they've been popping up out of nowhere. And I still wouldn't recommend them or use them myself at this stage. They're not ready for prime time. The 2 AIs that I think are the most valuable, that if you want to test and play with, I think Jasper AI does quite a good job there, especially if you're doing website headlines, blogging, writing articles, doing all of those things. It's been in testing for quite some time. I think they've done a really good job. I do question some of the data sets that their stuff is built on, but I think that they're at least been thinking about it and been worrying about it, and they've been making adjustments in their set. So I think that they're a little farther ahead than some of the other companies. But I don't know that I really agree that you're going to get amazing results out of it. I still think you're going to get pretty common mediocre results. Like your results will be similar to everyone else's. Like it's going to give you the best practices for blogging, means your blog titles are going to sound like everybody else's out there, but maybe that's an improvement for you, right? Compared to what you were doing before. You're not a writer and you're not capable of that. Then go for it, right? Use it. That's one I agree to. Podmatch. You've heard me talk about Podmatch. Podmatch is my favorite AI. Alex Sanfilippo has built a beautiful learning platform. It learns really well. And I have not had anything but amazing results from every single person that I've talked to who uses it. And it gets better and better the more you use it. So
Now,
I have to say, I'm a huge fan of what he's built there.
and you know what, listeners, this is really high praise coming from Tracy, because like she said, she's experimented with 20 of these things. And if it didn't work, she'd be the first to tell you for sure. And I'm personally not a Podmatch user. You are, so you have direct personal long experience with it. And I've heard you say
Over
that
6
over and
months,
over,
yeah.
that it really has learned, and that's one of the great things. So one of the things I want to add to what you were saying, Tracy, is the interesting thing is when you're helping and contributing to these data sets, you got to realize there are, millions of other people contributing to some of them, like ChatGPT, of course, and then maybe smaller sets of people with others. But it's interesting to me, the idea and the way to sort of explain why it's kind of challenging and sometimes you don't get what I think are the best results back, is that it's taking in all this data, and because it's not siloing it in different categories. And like you pointed out a really good one, Tracy, of results for men who are contributing to it and results for women. Forget,
Cultures in there.
ethnicities, cultures for right now. I mean, just take that difference in data set. If you could silo the data sets of, hey, I'm a man and I'm typing in this stuff, and those are the kind of data set that should be contributing to what I'm doing, and then a woman's perspective is a different data set. If you could do that, boom, that would make it a whole lot more valuable, because what happens is it's really homogenizing the data across everything, right? It's kind of like averaging everything out. What are the best results of all this data? Not, what are the best results for me in my unique situation? And that's something that you have to be aware of. And again, at the end of the day, I think for each of us using some of these AI tools, it's a business decision at the end of the day. Do you want to do it? You brought up a lot of really good, I would say, ethical concerns, intellectual property potential concerns. Those are real. It's going to take time for a lot of those things to shake out, but is there a value proposition for you in using one of these tools? Are the results that you're getting back helpful to you, worth it to you, that it's worth trading your data for in order to get, right?
Right. And that's what I want you to just think about is we're using these things and we're benefiting from it and it's making something in our life easier and doing. It's a trade-off, right? We're always trading off our privacy and security, right? For these kinds of things. These are trade-offs we make with whether or not we give an app access to our contact lists or access to something, a feature on our phone, right? We make those decisions every single day. But to not understand the underlying broader implications of this related to artificial intelligence is a mistake. So we don't want it to be this mystery. We don't understand how it works. And so what I'm telling you is that it has a data set it starts with. And sometimes those data sets they're not created equal is the best way to say that, okay? They're not created equal. And so when they are revealing and transparent about it, it helps to understand better where it's unequal so that I can understand whether or not I'm personally going to be harmed by using it. Right. So we don't always understand that if they refuse to reveal their data set. And I will tell you that the only reason that OpenAI is so upfront about it is because they're actually run by a nonprofit and it's part of their code of ethics. Which I would like to say right now, I did a webinar on IT and security related to artificial intelligence. And I talked about developing a team and how a company like ours is developing a code of ethics team so that as we approach everything we do in artificial intelligence, we're looking at the implications and the responsibility and the broader reach of what we might be creating and doing, not just from an ethical standpoint, but also from a compensation standpoint. Do you deserve to be paid for your contributions in it? Do you deserve a discount in services because you were an early adopter? Like thinking about that is also something that we care about. So we built that into it. So we're going to air that episode in Feed Your Brand. It's already in the works. So I know that will probably air before this episode will, but we'll make sure that the two are tied together in the blog post for this episode so you can listen to them both. And then, of course, we'll connect you up to that other episode. But looking at those three things again, that data set is of utmost importance. How it's learning and how it's training. Is there a really good feedback loop that's automatically built into everything of which it's doing it? And then for me personally, for everything that I want to see is I want to see a plan or an understanding of how it is learning me personally, my brand, my voice, my information. Is it still able to stay what I would call bespoke, customized, right? Is it still able to do that? Or is every result that I get going to end up being homogenized, as Tom put it, right? The mediocre middle is not what my brand is about. And I don't want to end up utilizing a tool that it gets worse and worse and worse and becomes that over time. That ruins my brand integrity. And I can't have that now just because I want to save some time. So I look at those three things in every time I review one of these tools, and those are my guidelines, and I wanted to share them with you. And then I call them working guidelines because, and that's what we called them in the title here, is because I'm always working on them. I might change my guidelines slightly as things come out. Right? This thing is in flux. It's moving. It's a fluid concept. Yeah. We're in such early adoption stage of it.
Yeah, it's a work in progress for sure. And the only other kind of considerations I'd like to add to what you said, Tracy, are your business niche, your topic niche of your podcast. I mean, if you have a podcast on real estate investing versus you have a podcast on, personal development, you're going to have very different things you're talking about. And, it'd be great if it learns your niche, what you care about, what you talk about, right? As much as maybe who you are, and some of the other qualities that you mentioned. So
yes, that's what I mean by sort of overall brand, is I'm also
bespoke
thinking like your
brand,
your
but also
niche
I think
area,
niche category. Sure. Yeah. That's, I mean, no, you did say that. I just wanted to sort of spell that a little more for some of our listeners in case it wasn't completely clear. Because that's what we're looking for.
Right. So, I mean, we're actively involved in sort of what's going on in the artificial intelligence community. I'm a part of a couple of very broad, I'm going to call them mastermind groups, but I would say that that's really not the case. It's more like a brain trust, and it's sort of an exploratory, tactical usage and ethical thinking about these tools as well. So these are some of the things that we're working towards and reviewing. And every time we look at a company, we're just sort of and a tool, we're looking through this responsible. But I really want you to think also, like, really think carefully about the driver behind who's creating these tools. Because at the end of the day, if we want to talk about responsibility, is their responsibility aligned with where I want to grow and I want to go and what I believe in my company? And I would say a lot of times that's not the case, right? So me participating in Google Bard is very aligned for our brand, for what we do as a business. And so for me not to be a part of that exploration, understand how it's working, understand what's going into it, and participating in a deep level would be a huge mistake. Why? Because everything that we do at Podetize is meant to become more search engine optimized, right? And that's a primary directive at Google. So whether it's becoming search engine optimized for the Apple podcast app or they all operate in the same model. So if it works for over at Google, then it's probably going to work in a similar way over in these other spaces as well. So I think that that's my responsibility as the head of this company to make sure that I participate in that and understand that, because it could change the face of search engine optimization, of which is an essential part of what we do for our podcasters here, right? Making sure that they can be seen, heard, and found is our mission. So I have to be a part of that. Now, some of these tools are put out by hackers all over the world trying to make a buck. And they just figured out this is the hot thing to do. And there's really nothing built into it, but it's just some little code SaaS that they built on. And there's never going to be a full company. It's just going to do one thing. I don't have a time to like explore all these tools that do one thing, that I have to log into them separately, pay a separate subscription fee, then to take it out and put it into my, like, that's just too much work. And so is it worth it for me to help them make a buck? I don't think so. That's also something I think about, like, who's really putting this out? And is it really worth it at the end of the day? And are they building a viable business that's going to be useful to me long term? And my participating in this early use is going to be valuable.
A lot of things to consider, isn't it,
It is,
Tracy?
yeah.
It's the wild west of AI out there, and you know, it is a work in progress, as you said, but an exciting one. Ultimately, I think a valuable one that you and I are bullish on, but doing it in the right way, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up there. Thanks so much for listening to Feed Your Band, everyone. You can go to the blog post at podetize.com to get a link to anything that was mentioned today. If you're looking to find out about Google Bard or any of these other things that were mentioned today, go there, check that out. And we'll be back next time with another great episode. Until then, this has been Tom and Tracy on Feed Your Brand.
Okay.
So, hey, so
go to
just for,
questions
so
here.
that'll, yeah, but, and so what I wanna, we do have a question here, but I also, and actually, Melissa Nazini, if you can check social media and see if there's any questions out there while we're doing this. I do want to let our customers here who are on with us know a little bit more behind the scenes, is that we're very bullish on AI. It is going to be incorporated into our client portal in certain ways. I can't tell you all about that today, but
Remember your live
while-
stream.
I know, but while there are limitations to it, we are figuring out ways to take AI and make it practical. And in a lot of the ways we've been talking about, there is a path to that, and it's very exciting, and will only make the work we do better. And we've also been doing a lot of testing and comparing of work that we do with our employees and team compared to what AI can do. And those are some benchmarks. And when the time comes that using it makes what we do better, we're on it. We're there.
Right.
But
And
it's not
integrating
there
it,
yet.
making it streamlined, those are goals, right?
Mhm.
Workflow needs to be better, use needs to be high. All of those things will be a part of it. So let's talk a little bit about and answer some of these questions. So Anne's asked, how do these podcast AI tools work practically? So the AI tools all work differently, but most of them are geared towards doing one thing. Some of them writing titles and descriptions for your show. There's a couple of tools
and
out there.
that's
Every
one
time I
we
turn
took
around.
a deep dive into last year. One of them that was pitched to us, and other people in the podcast industry were saying, this is my favorite tool. I'm telling all podcasters about it. We really gave it a good try, worked with that company because we have an application to use it on a large scale if it actually works. At the end of the day, just didn't work. It was gonna waste time of us and our staff and produce not as good results than what we're producing. So that one crashed and burned. It's otherwise we would have already told you all about it. So just as one example. So like Tracy said, one thing, doing titles and descriptions. What's another one that just does one thing, Tracy, that didn't really?
Well, so we tested out for over a year. We tested out a social media tool that was supposed to optimize writing social media posts from the podcast or from videos. It was videos in general. Yep. And it was an abject failure. Like we couldn't get it
to do like a full year on it, didn't we?
And it was expensive.
We put a good effort in on it.
We tried.
They kept saying, but train it and it'll pay off. Train it and it'll pay off. And it didn't.
A year later, it never paid off. Like it was just like, I don't know how much content we could have put into it that it would have improved on. We were doing 3 shows into it at any given time. So we were doing daily posts and we still couldn't get it to get us and get our brand, get our voice, get anything like that. It just was just so generic and it would pull the dumbest clips. And I just don't know how else to it's just like way too expensive and way too cumbersome because you had to log into it, try to upload the videos, and our videos were too long, it would crash. And, at the end of the day, and maybe if you were just doing, 30-second TikToks, it would have been fine. And although I don't know how you clip a 30-second, that's like stupid. Like it's already a clip. So like you write a post from that, like it really ended up being so not useful. So that was one that we really tried because we hear from all of you that the social media posting is a problem. It's time consuming. Training a VA is just as hard, right? Training them to get your voice and get it going over time is just as hard. And so what we found though is easier to train a person and faster to train a person than it is to train this tool. And so that's where some of those don't work. So I'm going to drop into the chat here. Oops, sorry. This is the Podmatch YouTube video that we did. So if you want to, I'm not going to go into great detail on Podmatch and how we use Podmatch, but it is we have
a couple questions here on Podmatch, so you definitely want to address that. One of them is generically, how does Podmatch work, and the other is what are the benefits of difference between their basic and pro types of accounts on Podmatch? I know you can address that pretty quickly.
I think I actually went into it on the video as well, but just in case, hold on, I'm dropping into Restream because that takes a few moments to drop into Restream all the different places, but I cannot drop in. I think I can't drop into LinkedIn unless somebody comments
let Melissa or
back.
Nazanin share the video there. They can share it on social.
So okay. So the difference is what I recommend is if you're going in to use Podmatch as a podcaster, load your show in first. And then take the time to write your guest profile because you do have to put topics in your bio and some information that's not a part of your feed. So do your show first and then do your guesting profile second. Don't upgrade to the paid version, to the higher paid version. It's like $27 and $54, like might be the difference in the fees or whatever. Upgrade to the 54 once you get your second profile, once you get your guesting profile completed. So once you have both in place, because the algorithm works better to do both at the same time. And so you might as well then upgrade to the pro because it will help you more with guesting than getting guest placement. Like, so if you want to get guests for your show, you don't really need to pay a high dollar amount for that. It's going to happen automatically because there are lots more guests than there are hosts on the show, on the platform. Yeah, it's uneven. And there are hosts that are also guests, which is fantastic. And that's one of the best restrictions you can put in. And that's the way I do it. So I won't allow anyone to be a guest on my show who's not a podcast host.
Well, that's specific because your show, let's be clear, is meant to interview podcast hosts, right?
It is, but here's what I hear from all types of show hosts for all types of shows. They get more value in what we call a podcast swap, which we just did a Feed Your Brand episode on that recently in the last 30 days. When we do a podcast swap, you get more value from it because podcast hosts have podcast listeners in their audience. And so you're going to get more from that. So restricting that might be great for you in the beginning to start to round out your guesting group of people that you have, where you're inviting people you know, and people in your community and people in your niche, and experts in the area that you want, but then soliciting other podcast hosts who are a right fit match for your category, for your show, for your keywords, for all of that. Because they're a podcast host, you're going to get more listeners on your show from that. It's going to have a more direct result. And if you upgrade then at that point to the pro version of it, you get better results because those people have spent money and invested in their show, invested in their search, and they're investing in it. So they're actively participating in that process of training the AI, of getting the matches better, of telling them who's a good fit and who's not a fit for their show. So you want to do that. And then for the first 2 weeks of using it, I highly recommend you go in daily. And then after that, you can go in once a week. So, and go in daily to reject and accept, right? Yeah, you're training the AI quickly as to what you would like. So you accept or reject guests for your show, and you accept or reject being a guest on somebody else's show. So do both sides of it. And you can do like 6 to 7 a day or something like that. I forget what it is, but you can do up to that many matches per day, and you get them in both places. So you end up with 12 choices. But if you do that, you train the AI really quickly.
You've gotten to the point where you're just doing it once a week now, isn't that right?
Yep, I just do it once a week. And even right now, I haven't done it in a couple of weeks because I got a little overstocked with interviews. So, yeah, so I built up over the holidays, and now I ended up with too many guests. Yes, absolutely. So there should be, you can hit the 3 dots and hit copy on the side of any of the URLs in the chat now. That's kind of how they do it instead of copy and paste. Right. So yeah. Let's see. Did we have any other questions that headphones. See. Charla. Hi, how are you? Welcome. I'm so glad you joined us. Earbuds. So cheapy earbuds on Amazon. I buy them by the case. They're like $10 for 10 of them or something like that. They're ridiculously cheap. But the only key is that they have no microphone in them, right? There's no, Tom's has a microphone.
Mine has a microphone. I just don't use it. You got to make sure, because it'll show up as one of the available microphones to you in Zoom. You just have to make sure it's not set to use it. I'm using this microphone right here.
Right. And so that's why I don't recommend it for people, is because if you have it there, you have to know and acknowledge sometimes it switches you out automatically. And we've had somebody who, when you do an update to your computer, so like if you do a system-wide update to your computer, to the OS or something, sometimes it can reset all your microphones and all your stuff, and you won't realize it, and you'll record. So if you don't have it in it, you can't go wrong. And so that's what I highly recommend for everyone. It's Bluetooth is workable, but I don't recommend that one at all, because it almost always overrides everything. And I'm trying to see, I have somewhere.
Not only that, but Bluetooth headphones, we don't recommend in general, folks. And that's one of, it's a point that is worth emphasizing again.
So this is another one that I have, everyone. And this one is like, if you want to hide it because you're on TV, like this one's awesome for me, because I can put it like this over my ear,
put the wire behind
hide it with my hair. You can't see it at all. It's clear. And then you put the wires behind you. So I can do that. And somebody, I was like, oh, why do you have the wired in there? I'm just lazy. Like I could do that, but I don't want to use it on a daily basis. I want to just pop the earbuds in my hair, and my hair kind of covers it. So you can get it colored to match your hair.
Not only that, again, my point though, Bluetooth earbuds of any kind, if they're not wired, then they're going to run out of battery at some point in the middle of a conversation you're having with someone. And that's a
Yeah.
tech problem you just do not want to deal with. So we're very much recommending wired plug-in headphones, earbuds of some kind. You save yourself a lot of headache when things go wrong.
And you have two options. You can plug it directly into the bottom of the microphone, or you can plug it into your computer. So either way, it's totally up to you which way you do it, but your system, you can set it as a system recognized. So Rosie, I'm so glad you got your microphone banner. Yay, you got your mic flag.
Yeah, her mic flag. Yeah.
Yay. Good.
Took too long to get to you. I apologize, but
Charlotte, for you, over the ear is going to be great. I will find the link for that and send it to you. I bought it on Amazon.
Charlotte, your microphone, Charlotte's new podcaster, your microphone is on the way to you. And with that is a cheap pair of earbuds, just so you have one that doesn't have a mic in it. But there are nicer ones out there. You probably want to use something different, but save those in a pinch. They're going to work for you. Let's see. Let's see. Anything else? What we got here? All right. You're welcome, Trella. Welcome. And everyone, Trella's new to our community, and welcome. And we hope to see you frequently on these calls, and hope you get a lot of great value and support. And it's a great group. I was really nervous, guys, when Charla was the first person on today and no one else showed up for a while. I'm like, I'm sure more than one person's going to show up. So I'm glad that worked out.
Almost feeling very unloved there.
Oh, no,
Worried.
And you got to see us in all our rawness and authenticity, as I sort of messed up the start of our podcast episode today. That doesn't happen every week.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So
let's
still
see.
managed to pull it out. But
any other questions? Doesn't have to be on AI, could be on tech, could be on, anything. Feel free if you have something you want to share or say. So Charla records her podcast live every week, the exact hour prior to this call. So she ends that and then she comes over here. I remember her telling me that last week. What content do you use to feed into AI typically? Definitely. I mean, one of the things that you can feed into AI, there's several different things. I mean, different AIs take video files, take audio files. Other AI would use something written like a transcript, but that they all work a little different.
For the most part, most of them are working from transcript right now. Like there are, like even the AI I was referring to that we use for social media, you would load the video in and then it would convert it to transcript and then it would give you the information. And so it was still convoluted in its process. The issue right now,
I think it's going from text, though. It's using video to get to the text, right?
Right. Getting video to the text.
Or
so it's
audio.
always doing a transcription. So that's honestly the first point of failure, because almost all of them are based in this language model and this data set that is predominantly white male. It's where it falls apart from its first standpoint. So its training data set is compromising its results and the way that it functions, because it doesn't correct anything. It's not corrected transcripts, right? Like it doesn't have any loop going back and forth saying, hey, you really got this wrong. You don't understand my real estate lingo.
See,
right?
That's the problem is we see with a lot of these is no feedback loop, right?
Right. So if you've ever used a transcript system and used an AI to do it, any kind of like rev.com or rev.ai or otter.ai, you see it all the time. You see what it gets wrong, what they call the mishears or unintelligibles, right? 9 times out of 10, that is an industry lingo item, right? So it's
a niche topic, specific industry phrase, like I'll give you a good one. It messes this up all the time. Somebody talking about e-commerce selling uses the term SKU, meaning SKU, it's an acronym that means stock keeping unit. The AI hears skew and spells it out SKEW.
And it's
like
not
you've
just about
skewed
spelling it
something.
wrong.
Right.
It
It's understanding it.
misunderstands it,
Mhm.
right? It just completely misconstrues the word, because all of these transcription systems are set to hear words and then fill in the blanks after it when it can't understand what you said. And so it fills in something completely wrong because it just understood that to mean skewed, like it's askew, like it's off. And so it doesn't understand it at all. And so it usually has a large amount of unintelligibles. So those are likely to be the meat of the
The important
amazing
stuff.
content that you wanted to be shared out on social media. And so because it's mishearing it, it's flawed from the beginning and it will never get better. That's really what we discovered in the process, if you want to understand it completely.
And it could learn
It could learn. Yeah.
and that's this is what we're
Right.
working on, and we see as the potential and why it's still promising, even though we see a lot of failure points right now.
Yeah. And it is. And it's the number one thing we're going to fix as our basis before we roll out any AI. It's not that we're not training it, we're not working on it behind the scenes. We absolutely are, but we will not roll it out till we're positive it can achieve those results. So, well, I think that's pretty much all we got for today. But I would say, and some of the other problems with the AI right now is if you're using ChatGPT or some of those other ones, until GPT-4, the 4 version of it comes out, it's also limited in the amount. So you could never drop in a whole entire podcast episode. You have to segment it. You can't drop in a whole book chapter. You can't drop in an entirety and get it to review it. You have to chunk it. And so,
and then get it to, in a different way, review each of them. It's complex.
Right. And so they're doing that behind the scenes at Jasper and some of those other tools. They've already accomplished that. They're doing it behind the scenes. The problem is that it's not always looking at things in a continuous way, right? It doesn't look at it as a cohesive group of things. It looks at it 5 separate things that you then have to get it to look at it as a cohesive thing in order to give it you the result you want. And so that's where it can fall apart. So the length of things is a problem, but some of those things will be resolved in the next few months as we see the software get better and better. So
lots to think about.
Yeah.
And that's why it's just not quite ready.
And
for
current
prime time,
affairs,
fun stuff.
not okay.
Current
Right?
events, no.
Current events. It doesn't cover current events right now. All the AI is a little. It's shackled so that it cannot cover.
It's not in. It's not processing new data in real time.
Yeah.
So, if from like you said, current events, news, things that happen. So.
Well, I think that's it for this week. Next week, we've got coming up, I will look at the topic and say, oh, we're covering the fear-mongering podcast host style. So there's a lot of this going on, this just scaring everybody and this aggressive type of model. And we're going to be talking about that host style and is it working or is it in decline? Are we seeing this sort of shock jock model that used to come out of the radio style and talk show style? Is it actually working in podcasting right now? And we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Sounds like another fun one. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining, especially those of you who joined for the first time. We actually had 2 people joining for the first time. I realized we had Asmita was here. She's gone now. I think it's during her workday because she has a day job. So I'm glad she joined. And she probably was very interested in this topic because she's actually a computer coder. Which is
I so agree, Charla. Fear porn needs to disappear. So we'll talk about that next week.
Oh,
yeah.
boy.
That's what it is. Exactly.
Fun.
So.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate you being here. Hope you got some great value. We'll look forward to doing it again next week. Okay. Until then.
Take care.
Bye.